Hello, everyone. Welcome to Mystery Mondays. Please subscribe, hit your like button. I lost my place already. And as always, feel free to respectfully comment. Keep the comments respectful, though, or I will delete them. Today, I will be discussing the recent case of Josue Calderon's homicide briefly, as well as the National Park cold cases of Drake, Lyons, Kramer, and Mitchell Dell Staling. I have decided I am going to try doing just one case at a time because these last two I found quite a bit of information on, and then if there's something that I find is important on a separate case, I might go ahead and discuss that one as well. I was honestly a bit surprised to find so much information concerning these cold cases. As I said, for that reason, I have decided, and the fact that there were a couple of others that I found quite a bit of information on as well, I've decided I'm only going to do one case a week unless there's an update on something. And the only newer case that I found anything on this week was Josue Calderon's case, except for the fact that Doug the Bounty Hunter is going to go to Moab, Utah, or so it's reported via Facebook. He was communicating with Kylan Schulte's father, and he is said to be heading to Moab, or was heading to Moab, Utah, to try and help figure out who may have killed Kylan Schulte and Crystal Turner. So that's maybe good news. Hopefully. So now I've lost my spot. However, I will begin with Josue Calderon's homicide case, as the new information I found on it is very brief. The information I shared last Monday about Josue's case and the murder which took place in Providence, Rhode Island in a restaurant on September 25th, 2021, had a bit more information than references were willing to discuss, the references that I used last week anyway. According to GoBlueRidge.net, along with Juan Rivera and Julio Castro, Josue Calderon was a suspect in the killing of Jorge Garcia, who was 38 years old. Jorge was shot multiple times while he ate breakfast at a local restaurant. No charges have officially been filed in either case yet. And as I had mentioned, Juan Rivera and Julio Castro are being questioned concerning Josue's murder. They have not, of course, been charged yet, but it is suspected that perhaps they killed him because he was going to tell that the three of them had killed the other guy, or something along that line. Better check and make sure I don't have any comments. But yeah, I thought that was really interesting that I did not see that when I was doing the report about him last week. And so now I'm going to move on to Drake Kramer. This is a really interesting case. I have mentioned him in brief before when I was just going through all of the cold cases of missing persons in the national parks within the United States. But now I'm going to discuss his case in a lot more detail. So Drake Kramer was reported missing in Grand Canyon National Park in Arizona on February 2nd, 2015. There's some discrepancy about that, but that is the date that he was actually officially reported missing and last had contact with his family. He was reported missing by his family, who had grown concerned about him after receiving several odd texts from him and then not hearing from him for an extended period of time. It wasn't an entire day, so I guess like a couple of hours. And I was like, he was in the wilderness. He was in the Grand Canyon National Park. So I don't know how good of reception he would have had, but apparently he had good enough reception to have been texting them at some points. So I guess, that's why they became, part of why they became concerned. They feared he may have become suicidal. When he went missing, he was 21 years old. People described him as a nice guy who was very well rounded. He was working at Lowe's and was a geology major at the University of Texas at San Antonio. Prior to attending school there, he studied geology at Northwest Vista College, which I believe was also in Texas, where he obtained his associate's degree. The Grand Canyon is a geologist's dream, with its beautiful rock formations and awesome scenery. His family said he was a hard worker who was frugal, always on the honor roll, and a seasoned outdoorsman. Drake stayed the night, I'm sorry, Drake stayed at Bright Angel Lodge on January the 31st, 2015, and was last known to have been seen there on February the 1st, 2015, when he checked out. His family reported him missing the next day. He had left his car in the parking lot at Bright Angel Lodge after he checked out, which the park was not aware of until his family reported him missing and his car was located in the parking lot of the Bright Angel Lodge. Before I go on with the story of the search and such, I'm going to tell you about a few events that occurred before Drake went missing. He had texted his family, as I mentioned earlier, that he left his home in Texas abruptly and drove to California. Then he drove to the South Rim area of the Grand Canyon. I believe most of these texts were actually with his father. He loved geology and had been to the Grand Canyon. He loved geology and had been to this park at least 4 times in the past, which of course was the Grand Canyon, not necessarily the specific area that he was now at, but he had been to the park, which is very large. His last text to his dad said he had loved everybody but needed to get back to Mother Earth and set his soul free, which is why his family became worried that perhaps he was suicidal. Could have just been poor wording of the text, but it does to me, set my soul free sounds like someone who is planning to commit suicide. In addition to his odd text, his parents were concerned that he had suddenly made an unplanned visit to the park that was not like him, they said. One of the last things he wrote to his mom was, quote, "I truly love and cherish every soul I met and will meet in my lifetime. Love, Drake Lyons Kramer," end quote. To me, that's an awkward way to sign a text to his mom, unless that was just his signature for all of his texts. And that text to me does not say that he was planning to kill himself, because he said, "and will meet." Initially, when I saw the Met part, I was like, wait, what? It's obviously suicidal, but and it's possible he was thinking things through, and part of the time he felt like killing himself, and part of the time he did not. Anyone who has ever been suicidal knows what that is like. Think things through really thoroughly and think the effect that it will have on your loved ones if you do go through with it. That's all I'm saying on that one. So after they got these texts and didn't hear from him for a while, his family began calling the park and trying to get people to look for him. His dad had seen him on January the 29th, 2015. The two watched the movie American Sniper together, which I need to watch again. I'm thinking that's a real intense movie. And he was not reported to have been dressed as he normally dresses. I will discuss that here in a minute. His dad reported that Drake had been, quote, "in good spirits," end quote, on that day. When it was the movie together, he was in good spirits. So his dad's like, I don't know what would have happened in 2 days that would have made him, or possibly one day, that would have made him all of a sudden decide that he needed to leave home and go be at one with nature. Once the park started searching for him, they did an extensive search for several weeks but found nothing. So the search had to be scaled back. The search area was massive with rough terrain. It was literally like looking for a needle in a haystack because the area is so large. I believe that portion of the Grand Canyon National Park, according to one of my sources, covers 300 square miles. Now, that source said that they searched 300 square miles, and I was like, no, they didn't. I guarantee you they did not search 300 square miles. That's a huge area to search. Possibly via helicopter, but not on foot. They did not search that much. So, for more than 6 days, they searched the South Rim developed area, which stretches from Hermit's Rest on the west side to Grandview on the east side. They searched heavily wooded areas and performed over the rim technical searches, um, which sounds very intense. They also used dog teams and aerial teams in their search. Posters about Drake missing were placed all over the South Rim area. Though he was known, and this is what I was talking about a while ago, though he was known to dress in dark colored clothing and wear either a bandana or backwards ball cap type hat, he is said to have been last seen wearing blue jeans and an olive green sweatshirt. There was no mention of a bandana or a backwards hat. And I found it interesting that he was wearing an olive green sweatshirt after he had gone to watch the movie American Sniper. Kind of a military color, the olive green there. I thought that was interesting. He was 5'7" tall, weighed approximately 140 pounds, and had dark brown mid-length hair, and mid-length means it comes about to your shoulders, and blue eyes. I think it would be interesting to know how his academics were going at this specific time in his life, as well as how he was really doing at work. To me, these not going well are some good reasons for him to suddenly decide to leave San Antonio and visit the Grand Canyon for a while. Of course, there's other things. Could be dating, could be something religious, could be just one bad grade, if he's always been on the honor roll. There's no telling what it could have been. Someone came across with the complete wrong attitude or threatened him some way or something. Just really tragic. But it would be interesting to know that information, in my opinion. So his family tried to concentrate on the positive, telling themselves he meant he wanted to be out in nature and be one with it. Robin Kramer, which is Drake's dad, said his son loved to be outdoors and camp. He also said he was not sure his son had the proper hiking equipment with him, as he didn't seem to have planned this trip. So aside from him going to the park and lodge, nobody knew what Drake's plans were. He was at the south rim of the Grand Canyon National Park because that is where the lodge is located, and his car was found there in the parking lot at the lodge, the Bright Angel Lodge. The day his family reported him missing in the park, he had sent several texts, as I mentioned earlier, that concerned his family, a few of which I mentioned earlier, as I said. I'm tired and getting confused again. But nothing new for me, right? The search for him led to his car being located. Then park personnel searched, quote, dozens of miles along its rim and wooded areas, rappelled over the edge, and enlisted a helicopter for aerial supervision, end quote. So I'm guessing rappelling over the edge of the canyon is part of what it meant by the rim technical searches, the over the rim technical searches. His favorite spots in the park, his favorite spots to visit in the park were searched thoroughly. His family let them know where his favorite spots were, and they even traveled there a couple of different occasions. One time was like 6 months after he went missing. They raised money so that they could go there and look for him, from what I saw online anyway. Sadly, after 6 days of intense searching, the park chose to place their search in very limited continuous mode, which they have no choice but to do after a while if someone has not been located with any luck. This means crews who go into that area, including pilots as well as rangers, will continue to search for Drake. Aside from that, no specific searches would be conducted unless perhaps some of his family or friends decided to go out there and search, I suppose. The weather was good when he went missing, with highs near 60 degrees Fahrenheit, and during the intensive search, the weather remained good, yet the terrain was rough and challenging to search. Though he was, excuse me, got a frog in my throat, in my throat all of a sudden. Though he was last known to have been seen checking out of the lodge, surely somebody saw him after he left there. It's assumed that he went for a day hike after he left the lodge. No one knows for sure, as I mentioned, but it's assumed that that's what he did, and you would think that someone would have seen him. But I don't know how many people are in the park end of January, early February, but I would think that someone would have seen him. His dad said it was not like his son to travel by himself and that the family is, quote, trying to believe that he wants to go be in nature and explore, be on his own and deal with whatever is going on in his mind, end quote. And I believe his dad said that the last time he had gone to the Grand Canyon National Park, he did go to the South Rim and he went there with his aunt at that time. I don't know why the NPS.gov website has him listed as missing since January the 31st of 2015, when he did check out of his lodging on February the 1st, 2015, and he texted his family at least a few times on February the 2nd, 2015, which was when he sent the text to his dad about wanting to set his soul free. And so that February the 2nd, 2015 is actually his official missing date. Everything else has that date listed, pretty much everything else has that date listed, but NPS.gov has January the 31st, like as though he didn't check out of the hotel, but he did. So there have been no leads in this case at all, at least none that have been made public, because we know that they don't always make everything known to the public, because there might be something that, if it was known to the public, might ruin a case, so to speak. So as stated earlier, NPS.gov states he was last seen wearing blue jeans and an olive green sweatshirt. In addition to I am getting so tongue-tied. In addition to search methods mentioned previously, searchers also traversed the edges of canyon walls, and that does not mean rappelling. That means they literally scaled along the edges of the canyon, or at least that's my understanding of what that means. But they did rappel as well, as I said earlier. Anyone with any information on Drake Lyons Kramer is encouraged to call the National Park Service Investigative Services Branch tip line at 888-653-0009, which is a toll-free number, or email them at nps_isb@nps.gov. You may also call the NPS, which is National Park Service, of course, Silent Witness line at 928-638-7840. And that number was instrumental in the next case I'm about to discuss. This information concerning these phone numbers is listed in my blog description section, along with information on what to do if you think you have found an item or items that may belong to a missing person or appears to have been abandoned. I will discuss this following the case of Mitchell Dell Staling, and I'm using a different notebook for that because I used a separate notebook to do my research, and then I didn't have enough time to transfer it from the one notebook to the other one before I did the vlog, so I apologize for that. Not very well coordinated tonight, and I have got to, or organized, I guess I should say, get to wet my whistle because my mouth being dry is part of why I'm stuttering and stammering so much, I think. So as I said, the other case that I'm discussing is that of Mitchell Dell Staling. He went by his middle name, Dell. He was reported missing June the 9th of 2013 in Mesa Verde National Park. Dale was 51 years old when he was reported missing. He set out alone for a short hike to Spruce Tree House within the park and never returned. This is an archaeological site. The Spruce Tree House is an archaeological site with 130 rooms and 8 ceremonial chambers, which are known as kivas. He was at the park. It's like an Indian cliff dwelling archaeological site, is what it is. He was at the park with his wife and his parents. His wife said he is directionally challenged, and so, anytime someone says someone is directionally challenged, I was watching an Unsolved Mysteries where this lady was like, well, my husband is real directionally challenged. And I was like, well, why you let him go anywhere by himself? He might have dementia. He might not be directionally challenged. But anyway, so this guy was said by his wife to be directionally challenged. And I said, which makes me wonder why none of the others went with him. And I started to take that out, but I decided to leave it in there. And you'll wonder why nobody else went with him. But that is explained later in my vlog, because I did find information concerning that. He had taken no water with him, and he did not have a map. It was a hot, sunny day whenever he went missing. His wife feels he may have been misled by a sign for the Chapin Mesa Archaeological Museum and went off the trail. Now, I don't know why he would have gone off the trail because he saw that sign. I was looking at where the Chapin Mesa Archaeological Museum is in relation to the Spruce, I forgot what it's called again, Spruce Tree House. And they're not that far apart. It's like maybe 1.2 miles or something like that apart. And you can get there from going off the trail that you would take the trail that he took and that he was known to have taken, and then go around a little ways and down the Spruce Tree Trail. I can't think of what exactly it's called, but yeah, you would do that to get to that other place. And I'm like, they're not really that far apart, but so there was a family at the park who did report seeing him on the Petroglyph Point Trail, which connects to the trail he would have taken to the Spruce Tree House cliff dwelling. And I did not mention that the Spruce Tree House dwelling was literally 1/4 mile from where his wife and parents were, which I believe was at a visitor's center. But yeah, he literally was walking down a 1/4 mile trail to go to this cliff dwelling. And then this Petroglyph Point Trail goes up, like it connects to the other trail and goes up and around and up a cliff. And in my opinion, maybe he was like, I want to get a better view of it. I think I could see it better up there. So he chose to go that way instead of going the other way. Might have been what it was, or someone might have told him he could see it better up there. I don't know for sure, of course. But yeah, so that trail connects to the trail that would have taken him to the Spruce House cliff dwelling. I believe I already said that. And the Petroglyph Point Trail is a loop with cliff exposure. Therefore, there are several steep drop-offs along the canyon wall, according to what I saw on their website. So it loops around, and it has cliff exposure, and there are several steep drop-offs along the canyon wall. Some say that it would be easy to roam off the trail before you get to the higher points and go off into the backcountry without even realizing that that's what you're doing. And other people say that that would be difficult to do. So for me, it would probably be easy because I'm not an avid hiker, But he was supposed to have been a pretty good hiker, as most of the people that go missing are, sadly. So this trail, the Petroglyph Point Trail, is 2.4 miles long if you take the entire loop. It's narrow and rocky and treacherous in places. It requires hikers to clamber in places up a stone staircase to reach the top. The stone staircase is pretty to look at, but it's kind of scary and intimidating to me. I'm terrified of heights, so I don't think that I would be going up there myself. But yeah, you can climb up it to reach the top and then look down over where the dwelling is, from what I understand. Several places along this trail, as I said, make it fairly easy to roam off the trail and into the backcountry. Now, this was according to some people. Other people said that that would be impossible to do. But yeah. So the family that had said that they saw Dale, they said that they met him on the trail and, quote, leapfrogged past one another and were together at the Petroglyph panel 1.4 miles from the trailhead, end quote. So the trail to the Petroglyph panel, according to the website, is 1.4 miles long. The entire trail is 2.4 miles long, so the circle back is only a mile long. And it's possible that part is more treacherous. I don't know for sure. But yeah, they leapfrogged past one another and were together at the Petroglyph panel, 1.4 miles from the trailhead. They did not see him after that, and neither did anyone else. And some say that there's an overlook up by where the Petroglyph panel is, so it's possible he fell from there. That would really be bad, but it's very possible that he did. Later, a hiker reported hearing someone calling for help while he was on the Petroglyph Point trail. And I'm like, I mean, did you go and get help when you heard the person calling for help, yelling for help? Or were you just like, oh, I hear someone yelling for help and kept walking? I mean, makes you wonder, doesn't it? Maybe he thought he was hearing things until after he found out that someone was missing, and then he was like, oh, well, I thought I heard someone yelling for help. You know how that is. Or maybe he thought that it was someone trying to draw him so that they could attack him. There's no telling. You never can tell. So, in September of 2020, the park, the Mesa Verde National Park, received an anonymous tip that led to human remains in a remote part of the park. On September the 17th was when the remains were located. Actually, I believe that's when they were removed from the park and the announcement was made that they had been found. And this anonymous tip is where I was talking about, that the silent witness tip line came in, because according to two of the articles that I read as references for this blog, that was the line that this person called in this tip on. In my personal opinion, this was an Indian who was out walking around the national park and stumbled across the bones and was like, gosh, I don't want to tell them who I am, because first of all, it was in a restricted area where the public is not supposed to be. Second of all, they might think that you had something to do with the person ending up there, even though the remains were just bones whenever they were found, because it had been, if this was in fact Dale Staling, it had been 7 years since he had been reported missing, over 7 years actually. So the remains were recovered by park law enforcement rangers, the Investigative Services Branch of the National Park Service, and the Montezuma County Coroner's Office. Due to personal items found with the remains, the presumptive identity was that of Mitchell Dale Staling. The park stated that, quote, DNA analysis will be performed to positively identify the remains. There is no indication of foul play, according to the coroner's office. The remains were found approximately 4.2 miles from the point where Staling was last seen, end quote. Now, it's possible, the coroner said that he did not appear to have been attacked by an animal, but it is possible that animals moved his remains, unless the remains were literally all found together, and then maybe not. So it had been more than 7 years, as I said, since Dale had gone missing in the Colorado National Park whenever these remains were found. He was reported missing June the 9th, 2013. The remains were removed from the park, found and removed, taken to the coroner's office on September the 17th of 2020. So that's like more than a year and 4 months. No, more than a year and 3 months. Bad math there. Sorry about that. So Dale had gone missing, um, of course, in this park in Colorado. And there were some sites where people were saying, where did he work before he went missing? No one says anything about where he worked. Well, yeah, they did. You just have to look at the local newspapers, people. So he had lived in Goliad, Texas, and worked in Victoria, Texas. So those ones that you see that say Victoria, Texas, or Victoria News, they are important. He had been a meat cutter and market manager for HEB, which is a grocery chain, before he retired to take care of his home and family. And I was like, he retired when he was like 51. But it's also been said that he was in the military, is what some people said. All I found about military and his family was that his father was in the military. I found nothing about him being in the military, though. So the Montezuma County coroner was 99% sure the remains were those of Mitchell Dale Staling based on his driver's license, credit cards, and social security card being found along with the remains. No foul play, as I stated earlier, was suspected, and it did not look like he had been attacked by an animal, as I briefly mentioned. There were no obvious signs of trauma. The coroner also stated that the DNA results would take about a year to get back, but I found no recent updates on the information about the remains because, it's now 2022 and 1 year from September of 2020 would have been September of 2021, but I'm sure COVID has messed stuff up a lot with people trying to do DNA analysis and all that sort of stuff like it has everything else. Why should it not mess up everything, right? And yes, sorry, I tend to lose my place, don't I? I found no recent updates on the information about the remains. According to the coroner, the anonymous tip came from a hiker who was in an area that is closed to the public. And as I said, I feel like it was probably an Indian because this land used to belong to the Indians and all of these dwellings were Indian dwellings. And there are some reservations nearby. There's like a Utah reservation to the west of the park. His remains were found at the bottom of a canyon, which is where they believe he died. And that was also a statement from the coroner. I believe it might have been a park official. The park will not reveal the exact location his remains were found at, which makes sense to me. And I found a lot of comments online, people being like, why will they not tell where his remains were found? Blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's an extremely remote area. You don't want a bunch of morons running out there so they can see where this guy's remains were found and getting themselves lost and also dying in the national park, right? Makes perfect sense to me. Plus, there are the dwellings out there, which is possibly, some of them I feel are probably not as stable as other ones, and that's why those areas are closed to the public because they don't want people falling and hurting themselves and such, According to a park spokeswoman, an anonymous tip came in the day before the remains were found, quote, that indicated the remains of Staling were in a remote section of the park west of Durango, end quote. So I'm curious if this caller actually named Staling, because if they did, that's very suspicious to me. Though I was trying to find online if there was anyone else that had gone missing between 2013 or even before then, and when the remains were found September of 2020 within the Mesa Verde National Park, and I could find no information on it. As we know, there is no log of the information of missing persons in the national parks within the United States, but I find it hard to believe that no one else had gone missing in that park. But if they hadn't, then the person was probably just like, I'm pretty sure that this is who I found, right? Because he's the only person that's gone missing. So the remains were found by search and rescue teams that afternoon in an area that had been searched when Dale first went missing in 2013. So this area was previously searched by at least some of the people who were searching for him. In my opinion, this may just mean that he was still wandering when they were searching for him, which is really sad. It might be sad you're running around confused, scared, dehydrated, disoriented, and people are looking for you, probably even calling your name, and you're so disoriented that you can't get to them, and they just don't see you or hear you either. Like maybe he was so dehydrated that he couldn't talk, you know. It's just so sad. Um, so more information about his hike itself. He had left for his hike around 4:30 p.m. on June the 9th, 2013, and had not returned after about 2 hours. His wife then alerted park officials about his situation. That night, an extensive search was started. Within days, there were 70 people, search dogs, and helicopters looking for him. This search lasted 2 weeks before it was placed in limited continuous mode. And that's what, like, sometimes, like the one for David Kramer, why did they search for him for several weeks instead of only 2 weeks, you know, before they put it in continuous limited mode? Maybe they were finding some stuff that belonged to him, or some footprints, or, you know, who knows. Um, Also, it was a different time of year. This was in June when it was probably super hot in the park, and the other one it was like 60 degrees, so it was easier to get more people out there, I suppose. Over the years, additional searches were carried out. For some reason, they had done a search in November of 2019, which leads me to think that maybe someone had previously found the remains or thought that they did in November 2019, and maybe they were researching the area that the person had said that they saw some remains in, but they still were not able to locate them at that time. Dale is said to have been to be, I'm sorry. Dale is said to have been, quote, an outdoorsman and a keen camper, end quote. As I said, most people that get lost in these parks are considered to be avid hikers and really good campers, really good outdoors people, but it is so easy to get turned around. The family made a one-day trip to the park because Dale had always wanted to see Colorado. They only planned to drive out to the lookout point and take in the scenery from a distance since the trail was rugged and Neen, which is Dale's wife, was overweight and his parents were elderly. Remember, those were the people he was traveling with. His wife, who called herself overweight, and his elderly parents. It would have been difficult for any of them to hike with him. So that's what I mentioned earlier. I wondered why nobody went with him, and that is why. But I mean, I'm overweight or not, I'm going, well, I'm not going to let you go down there by yourself. You're directionally challenged, right? I don't know that I would let someone hike in a national park by themselves anyway. I know people do it all the time and don't get lost, but I'm a worrywart, so I would want to be there with someone. I'm getting chatty and losing my place. Oh yes, okay, so it would have been difficult for any of them to hike with him. Since Dale was a rugged outdoorsman, he wanted to see the park closer. At the time he took his hike, the park was hot with temperatures in the 90 through 100 degree Fahrenheit range. There's no telling what the heat index was at that time. It always feels hotter than it actually is, especially if you're in the sun. Well, almost always, I should say. The terrain was made up of mesa tops and steep canyons with elevations between 6,500 and 8,000 feet. The hike to the top of the trail should have taken about an hour, but in my opinion, he did not have water with him, so he should have rested more often. And the park's website actually says that it takes the average person less than 1 hour to hike this trail, the Petroglyph trail, not the other one. So I'm like, okay, so like you hang out, you look at stuff for a while, and maybe it does take you an hour. If he sat down to rest, he could have fell backwards while he was sitting down to rest or something. There's no telling what could have happened to him. So Dell is said to have been an experienced hiker, as I said a minute ago. It appears the rest of his family stayed at the visitor center from which the Spruce Tree House cliff dwelling is said to be visible. That's where I left off on that one. But um, I did want to mention that, the DNA is still pending. They haven't officially got the DNA back to confirm that it is actually his remains that they did find. But there is good reason to believe that it was him. It could have been somebody else. Um, I'm assuming that whenever they do get the DNA back, if it is found to be his remains, and they do have no reason to suspect that there was any foul play, that anyone harmed him in any way. So then I'm assuming that if when they do get the DNA results back, it will be on the cold cases list like Jane Doe's, and will say that the case has been resolved. I don't know that for a fact, but I would assume that that would happen. So Izzy's over there snoring. But anyway, so before I go, I want to remind you guys what to do if you do find something that you believe might belong to a missing person in one of the national parks, or something that you just feel like might have been abandoned by someone, like they were hiking and their backpack got way too heavy for them, or their canoe, or whatever it is that they have. So they sit it down next to a tree, and someone comes along and it's sitting there with a little bit of moss on it, and it's like, looks like it's been abandoned. You need to report that to the National Park Service, because you never know, the person could end up getting lost in the forest, and need help, and if they go and find the pack, they're like, oh, this person we thought had left, but apparently they haven't, or something along that line. So anyway, this is what you need to do if you do find an item or items, including remains, that you believe belong to a missing person or appears to have been abandoned. Please leave the item in place where you found it. Note the location using your coordinates. Take pictures and notify the NPS ISB tip line. Again, that's the National Park Service Investigative Services Branch tip line, which you can call or text, and that number is 888-653-0009. And I was unaware until last night that they do have the National Park Service silent witness line as well, which you can send tips, from what I understand, to this other line anonymously as well. But the silent witness line is 928-638-7840, and all of this information is in the description for my video. And you may also email them at nps_isb@nps.gov, and that information again is in my description for the video. So right now I don't know for sure what I plan to do next Monday. I had found out about a case that involves a guy that I went to school with. He's a few years older than me. Actually, I guess my older sister went to school with him and his brother. But I had found out some stuff about a case involving him, his daughter, his ex-wife, who I used to be good friends with, actually, and one of her husbands who had gone missing, and her daughter. And I was hoping to get permission from someone in the family to cover that case. I don't want to step on toes or anything like that. But the stepdad and the girl, I call her a girl, she was 21 when she went missing. They're both considered to be missing, probably dead. But I was wanting and hoping to cover that case, but I don't know if I'm going to be able to get enough information to do so, or get permission to do so, even though I've already mentioned it, but I haven't said any names yet. But so, that being said, I am working through the list of the cold cases within national parks in the United States, and that was why I did Drake, Lyons, Kramer tonight, and Mitchell, Dale Staling, because they were the next two on my list. And so next week I will probably most likely do the next person cover the next person on that list, if I can remember what I did with the list. Yeah, I think it's in the back of my notebook. But anyway, so that being said, be sure to check out my Thinking Thursdays blog along with other videos on my channel. Share on your social media so other people can be exposed to the awesomeness of my channel or the suckiness, depending on your opinion. If you like to laugh at me, make fun of me, and go, hey, check out this chick. Yeah, I'm cool with that too. Anyway, until next time, everyone have a great whatever time of night or day it is in your part of the world. Stay safe and stay positive.